All right, guys. Thanks for joining us this evening. We're missing a few right now. Gary will not be joining us. We're waiting on Sarah Zimmerman to do so, but we do have a quorum and it is 5:05. So we're going to get started. The first order of business this evening is public hearing, and we've got two items on the public hearing. First of which is a rezoning request. The second is if there's any public comments on our operating budget. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing. Ryan, do we have any comments on either of those two items, the ordinance 2020-12, the rezoning request?
We did not. So no comments. So I could either go over both of them kind of right now, or we could go over them when we get to the.
Let's wait. We'll go through those when we get in the agenda, since they are on the agenda. Any comments for on the budget?
No.
All right, cool. So I'll close the public hearing and we'll move into our regular meeting. This time I'll call the meeting to order, our December Christmas meeting for Pawleys Island Town Council. First item is public comments. I understand we have one of those.
We do. It comes from Henry Thomas, and his email that I received around noon today says, a vote of all property owners should be required when spending more than $250,000, except in emergency situations. Owners voted on a new water and sewer system. A 70% vote of all owners is required for the underground wire project. Why were we not allowed to vote on beach renourishment? A vote is not yet part of the town's proposed plan to access a new property tax. All owners should vote on the proposed property tax, elections, and all other town matters. Henry Thomas.
Okay. I've heard reference. I've tried to listen. I've got a copy of it too, but there was a reference to a proposed plan for a property tax. There is no proposed plan for a property tax. Actually, we met last week on Thursday and discussed a number of future funding options. A property tax is one of those, but we are certainly not moving forward with that anytime soon. Nothing's being proposed specifically. It's something that we will have to consider in the next year or so, but there's nothing currently planned. And if we do something like that, certainly we will get community feedback on that. Anybody else have comments, or you guys agree with that?
Absolutely.
All right. Any other comments submitted, Ryan?
Nope, that's it.
All right, cool. Ryan sent out over the weekend the meeting minutes from our November 9th town council meeting. I had a chance to read through those. I did not see any changes. Did anybody else see reason for updates, additions, or changes?
I did
Not
not.
entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve those meeting minutes.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, next on the agenda is under personal appearances. I believe Alice Otis has sent over to us a proposed logo. I think it's a drawing for us to consider. Ryan, I believe this logo that we currently have has been in effect for several years. We've had it for several years.
We've used it for just maybe like two and a half, maybe going on 3 years. And before that, we had another logo that we used, which is kind of the, a character, kind of like a logo that has the old town hall in it. And that a lot of people seem to like that one. We used that for a couple of years, but then when it got flooded out during Hurricane Matthew, it seemed like not really the best building to use in our logo. So it's really just been used, both of them been used out of a lack of having anything else. Yeah, I've gotten positive feedback on both. No one's ever said anything negative about them, but
yeah.
But,
did the town at any point, because I think this predates me, but did the town ask for there to be a logo kind of redo or a update, or for anyone to go off and change the logo? The town didn't do that before I came on, right? Or did they?
So, no, I mean, there were some discussions maybe 2 years ago about possibly doing a like a Facebook contest or something like that to create the new town logo. I just never had time to do that, and my position on it's always been, if we're gonna, a town logo is something hypothetically you're gonna use for decades, 50 years. So, kind of be a lot of thought put into it, and a lot of input from people who would have interest in it. And to just throw it out to Facebook to let anyone just come up with what's going to be the logo for the town for the next 30 to 50 years seemed kind of not the right way to go. But Mayor Braswell, before you, he kind of felt the same way, and he never really moved on doing anything with it. So just by default, I was told, just use that.
Yeah.
And you're getting something else.
I don't dislike it. If we have something better, like vastly better, then maybe we should discuss it. Was Alice going to come on to this Zoom call and present?
No, I talked to her. Yeah, I mean, she emailed me we emailed back and forth on Thursday, and she told me that I think Mayor Otis was going to get a hold of me and set it up so that we could get her to talk on here. I think I was looking at the participants. If you check under, because I gave you host control.
Yeah.
If you look under participants, I think I see Bill Otis, and I think you can check next to it. There's a tab that says more, and you can give him the option of chiming in, but I don't know if he wanted to do it that way. No one contacted me after that email. So I don't know how they plan to participate.
Honestly, I see participants, and when I click it, it just changed the layout of the speaker of the participants on the Zoom call. And I see more. When I click on more, it says live on Facebook, live on Workplace, live on YouTube. I don't see. Oh, there we go. Okay. There's attendees. I see that.
Attendees is what you want to look at.
Right.
Let me see if I can put out Bill on there. Bill, if you can hear me, you're actually now live. Yeah, you've got your mute off. If you want to speak to this, or if this is Alice, jump right on.
This is me. This is Alice.
Hello, Alice.
How are you?
Hi, Mayor Henry. Hi, council members. How are you all?
We're good. How are you?
Good.
Dear?
Good, thank you.
Well,
A little
listen,
background on this. About 18 months ago, I came before council and spoke that the current logo did not have a lot to do with Pawleys Island, and I thought did not represent Pawleys Island well. And several of the council members seemed to agree with that and tasked me with researching a new logo. So I have, and I went to Vita Miller, Coastal Carolina graphics department, and came up with Robert Kennedy, who's an architect who's a lifelong visitor of Pawleys Island, has had a house on Pawleys for about 45 years. He really gets what Pawleys Island is about. And he designed this logo. I'll hold it up for you if you hadn't got it in front of you. Can you see this?
let me see if I can bring you in as a one second.
Bring the video in as well as the audio, yeah.
Trying to do that. Let's see more. Promote to panelists. Let's see. Should be, if you can turn your video on, you should be able to share at this point. I don't know if you can see a button on there that says share video.
Can you see it?
Not yet, Alice.
No,
Okay.
I might be able to, there we go.
There you go. Good,
There.
good, good. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It shows a very content loggerhead turtle and the ocean and a new moon. And I think it tells a story about Pawleys in a very sort of lyrical way. And I think it would be charming as a logo for Pawleys, and I would like for you all to consider it.
Okay. Anybody have thoughts on it, Ashley or Rocky or Woody?
Well, I think I'm in total agreement with Alice's discussion of the history of this and how we did talk with her and ask her to research this. And I certainly, for myself, Alice, appreciate you spending this time with it. I am not in love with nor married to our current logo. As Ryan said, I think it was kind of an expedient thing. We just didn't have anything. And so it served us reasonably well, but there's nothing magic about it. And so if we can do better, I'm all for it. And I think, Alice, if I'm understanding you right, what you're showing us right now would have to go through some sort of process of, graphicizing, if you
Right,
will.
exactly.
Somebody's going to have
Exactly.
some artist is going to have to do something with it, right?
Yeah, this is the concept, and it would need to go through a graphic artist to put the
Hmm.
proper lettering on and to get the color in right. So that would need to be done. But this is the concept, and we'd like to go with it if y'all Like it.
Suggest.
I don't dislike it. I don't know that I love it, but I don't dislike it. I think one of the things I suggested when it was sent out to us a few weeks ago is let's get it maybe digitized some so we can, because when I first saw it, I wasn't sure exactly what I was looking at. And so I think if we clean it up, digitize it, get it in a format like a JPEG or a GIF format, then we can all look at it and see exactly what it's going to end up being. I'm not opposed to moving forward with it.
Good,
Ashley,
good.
got an opinion on it? Ashley?
I think it looks pretty good myself. It encompasses the things that when we reflect on Pawleys Island, it encompasses a lot of the things that come to mind, in my opinion.
The moon kind of like the state logo a little bit, the sickle moon.
Alice, let me ask this question. Would you have to incur cost in order to get this turned into a more representation of what you're thinking about, as opposed to the concept? Is that going to involve cost?
I'm sure they would, but I would be glad to absorb that.
Well, that's mighty kind of you. I think we would be able to, my frank opinion is we would be able to gauge it and judge it a lot more easily once that artistic element is there, where someone has
Right.
taken it and really turned it into a piece.
Yeah,
I don't know if everybody agrees with that, but
I agree with that. That's what I had suggested a couple of weeks ago. I think that's right.
yeah. Well, I wanted to ask Ryan if he could help me with that, or do I need to seek it out myself?
I've a few friends that are graphic designers. So, if you would like me to, in fact, the one we're using now is a friend of mine put it together. I just said, hey, I need something. You throw something together, and that's what they gave me. So it'd be a lot easier if I went to her with a concept, and then they could easily turn it into something, a little bit more polished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the people that you have used in the past, Ryan, that, for example, have done our T-shirts for 4th of July have done an awesome job. So if you've got those same kind of resources that could apply to this, I think they could turn it into quite a nice piece.
Yeah, no problem. I'd be happy to.
I've got somebody too that can do it if Ryan, if we can't find somebody on your end.
Well, there's no reason that, if it wasn't a lot of cost, there's no reason you couldn't get several and have a little bit of a runoff. Yeah. Even.
Alice, thank you for taking the initiative to do that.
Well,
We appreciate it.
Mayor, I appreciate it. And I'll get it to you, Ryan.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
problem.
Alice.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank
Merry
you
Christmas.
too, Alice.
Merry Christmas to
Merry
you.
Christmas to you. Take
Thank
care,
you.
Bill.
Yep. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right. You got them muted. I couldn't figure out how to take them all the way off, but I'll leave them right there. All right, let's go to item 5, which are reports and updates. First up is the police report. Chief Fanning, what's happening?
All's good. We had a not too busy November. The usual stuff that we're dealing with. As we've gone into the end of November into this month, though, we did have a handful of, more than a handful of auto break-ins. All the cars were unlocked. We've had a variety of items stolen, from everything from loose change and sunglasses to an Xbox. We don't really have much of a lead right now. It occurred very early in the morning, like 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. So we're still investigating it. And then we had a break-in. Well, we believe it was an unlocked house down on Springs Avenue that had been entered into, and whoever it was vandalized the house pretty good. They took everything out of the refrigerator and dumped it all over the floor and the furniture and stuff like that. So apparently it's kids, and we're looking into a couple leads on that now.
How many
And the
questions?
houses were empty, obviously, at the time.
It was just the one house. Yeah, it hadn't been, nobody had been there in about a month. And when the owners came in on Wednesday of last week, they discovered the big mess.
Okay.
Golly, man. Did we lose Ryan? Hang on one second. Let me
Like
see.
we may have.
Who?
No,
Ryan.
he's right there with
Oh, he
the
was,
chief.
he just got out of his chair.
We're sharing.
Golly. My bad.
All right. Well, any questions for me?
Zoom, zoom, zoom.
All right.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
Merry
back.
Christmas. Appreciate all you do out there, Chief. All right, next up, the building report from, there he is.
I'm back. So, I mean, more than last month, it ebbs and flows. It's always with some more stuff, usually in the fall and the spring, more projects. So really, there's a few significant things on the building list, but if anyone's any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm not going to go through them and point people out.
There's more than were on there last month and the month before that, right?
Certainly.
We'll add it. All right, any questions for Ryan about the building report? If not, we'll move to the financial report.
So included in your Dropbox link that I sent out, you haven't had that traditional financial report that you typically see. So I've got that now back in there. It's not 100% accurate because I'm working with Sandy, who Rocky knows. It's someone who was recommended to us by our accountants. She's worked great. She's able to take all the information I have and plug it into our accounting system. So you'll see that financial report. There are a few things I've noticed today that were a little off. She put it to a line item, should have went to a different one. So I'll polish all that up. But if you look at it, the things that jump out are A-tax. We've collected almost $530,000 in local A-tax. And that's through the end of November, which is only A-tax rentals through October. So we really have 2 full months of local A-tax revenue to come in, and we're already at 530. We only budgeted 495,000, so we're way ahead of the game there. And if you look at all the departments, with the exception of judicial, and the reason we're a little bit ahead on that is because we've now brought on the county magistrate court to handle our administration of court. So the costs were a little bit more than what we had anticipated at the beginning of the year, but still nothing major. And every other department is below what we had in the budget to this point. So absolutely nothing to be of concern at all is good news. So if anyone has any questions, again, more than happy to answer them.
Hearing no questions, I guess we need to move on to the coastal science engineering item for approval, right?
Yes, and that is the last invoice for the beach nourishing project. So that is it.
Yay.
Yeah. So we won't receive any more from them for beach renourishment, or at least this project. So that wraps it up.
We'll need a motion and a second to move forward that item.
I'll make a motion to pay the invoice, the last invoice to CSE.
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey, little late. I'm here.
No, no worries at all. We're going to move over to item 6A, which is the Accommodation Tax Committee. They made a recommendation a few months ago on the amount of money to approve for the Pawleys Island Beautification Foundation. We were waiting on some meeting minutes to be able to get the information we needed to make some decisions on how much. I think their request was for 20,000. The ATAX committee recommended 15,000. I scheduled some meetings this week to be able to discuss things further. I was able to get some financial information from the committee, just so we could use that to make some educated decisions. The 2 meetings that we scheduled and rescheduled, the last attempt on Friday got postponed as well. A lot of stuff going on out there for the holidays, but I've decided to kind of move forward and bring to you all a recommendation based on some financial information, et cetera. So put together a few slides to share with you. I'll see if I can do that now. Everybody see that?
Yeah,
I'll go through this kind of quickly. So just a quick recap, the Pawleys Island Beautification Foundation is a 501c3 with their own board. This is not a town committee. This is their own standalone committee that supports the town and does a lot of maintenance and projects through landscaping and beautification on the island. They're all volunteers. They receive their funding two ways. One is through the ATAX grant that we're discussing tonight. And then secondly, through private donations that they receive from the community directly. The ATAX committee, which I mentioned before, makes a recommendation, but ultimately town council is going to make the final decision on how much money is actually awarded via the grant. So I wanted to show you guys something that I found interesting as far as history of like the nature park and our relationship with the Beautification Foundation. This is from a ground lease agreement that was established between the Pawleys Island Pavilion Company that actually owns the park and the town of Pawleys Island. These are, I have to move this. These are excerpts from the actual lease between the Pavilion Company and the town. I just wanted to read through a few things. The Pavilion Company leases to the town, and the town hereby leases from the company the land and all improvements thereon. Remember, we're talking about the nature park here. And then the town covenants that it will maintain or cause to be maintained the land, including the existing landscape. That's just basically to say the town's responsible for maintaining the grounds on the nature park, or find a body that can do that. In this case, the Beautification Foundation has stepped up in a volunteer capacity to be able to do that for us. During the term of this lease, the town shall have complete control over the land and operations thereon. As the entity that's leasing that property, obviously it's our responsibility, and what we have is control over that. And then the last thing I wanted to share is the town, acting through its town council, that's us, has the full power and authority to enter into this lease and to carry out its obligations hereunder. So the nature park is obviously, that's one of the biggest parts of the beautification's responsibilities to maintain the grounds. But ultimately the town and town council not only has a responsibility to maintain those grounds, but we have an obligation because we are leasing that property. So how is the Beautification Foundation spending their money? You can kind of break it down into two areas, either maintenance or improvements. The town, the public funds should be paying for the maintenance of the grounds, and I'll get into what those grounds are. And then the improvements should be paid for by donations. So when we talk about maintenance costs, we're talking about the grounds at Town Hall, grounds at Nature Park, the South Causeway Triangle, and the Bird's Nest. And there's been some discussion about possibly doing some beautification down at the South End parking lot, but nothing's been decided upon that. The Beautification Foundation has been using the same contractor for a few years, but they've decided to move to a new contractor for 2021. And in talking to them, they estimated it to be about $1,500 per month to maintain Town Hall, Nature Park, South Causeway, Bird's Nest, to the tune of about $18,000 per year. And one of the things I found interesting is I was looking at some of this financial information that we've gotten over the last 2 months to try to make these decisions. In 2019, I saw a September 6th financial summary document that said in 2019, they spent $12,000 operating costs. And in 2020, this year, through the first 3 quarters, they spent $9,000. So if you look at that as $3,000 per quarter, projection would be about $12,000 annually to maintain those grounds. This is a quick summary of contributions to the Beautification Foundation. So if you look at the first column, 2017, the town granted $13,500, 2018, $17,500, 2019, $15,000. The next column is a total of the private donations made to the Beautification Foundation. and you can see the numbers there. So what I did when you go down to the total line, I came up with a sum of the 3 years contributions that the town has made and compared that with the donations that have been given to the foundation through private gifts. And if you look at it, the town of Pawleys Island has contributed about 79% of the revenue over that 3-year span. And I thought it was also worthwhile noting that the donations are down considerably in 2020. And I'm sure that's probably true across the board with 501c3s and giving, but just wanted to point that out. So where are we going with this? The current balance for the Beautification Foundation in their actual checking account is about $8,600. So if we consider about 79% of that has been subsidized by the town, which I showed you on the previous slide, I would contend that about $6,800 of that balance is probably attributed to or given to the Beautification Foundation by the town. So that moving towards what are we going to recommend? So if they need $18,000, well, in the last few years, it seems like around $12,000 to maintain, but I'm sure there's other things like pine straw and weed and feed and things like that. But let's just assume for a minute that the actual maintenance need is $18,000. But as I mentioned before, about $6,800 of what's currently in the bank more than likely came from the town's grants over the last several years. You take that amount, subtract it from $18,000, which is what they need, and then you come up with $11,000. And I'm saying if we round it up to $12,000, that's, sorry, I went kind of fast there. Let me go back up if I can.
Is the 12,000 what the ATAX committee is recommending?
ATAX committee recommended 15. They asked for 20. They asked for, they recommended 15,000. They, the ATAX committee. And what I wanted to do is kind of work backwards and look at, because if you, there's also this chart. I don't have the full chart matrix on here because there's a lot of financial information. So in some years, I think it was 2018, where the town gave 17,500 and not even all of that was used. So there's still some funding left over because you can go year to year and say, well, how much money do you need? Well, we need, $15,000, and how much of that are you going to spend? How much did you spend the last year? So I tried to do a deep dive, but to answer your question, 15,000, I don't know what that was based on, but that was their recommendation.
Do we know who has the new maintenance contract?
Yes, it is. Got it somewhere. Let's see. Anybody else knows it before me, you can say it, but it is.
I heard the name, but I didn't recognize it. Brian.
No, let's see, Mr. Cano, True Green.
The guy's last name is Cano or?
Yeah, C-A-N-O. It's Maroney Cano is the name of the company that does it. Walk-A-Mall Landscape has done it the last few years, but they decided to move to Maroney Cano, C-A-N-O. I think they're a little bit higher, to the tune of $1,500 a month, which obviously I mentioned before is $18,000. But as far as past years, not spending all the money, the town funding the vast majority of the money that has been basically fueling all of the improvements and the maintenance over the last 3, 4, or 5 years. I don't have prior to 2017, but let me just kind of walk you guys through this, and we can discuss it and see where you want to go. So based on those numbers I just shared with you, my feeling is $12,000 is what it's taken to maintain over the properties over the last 3 years. Obviously, if we upgrade that sum and want to do more, it's going to cost more. But I do think that the current balance that they have are monies that's been subsidized by the town. Have the Beautification Foundation look at the actual maintenance costs through the third quarter next year, so we can know exactly how to project what we give them in 2022. I think that's the best way to We don't have that. We don't have a lot of that information, receipts, and shows exactly how much they're spending. Obviously, they don't report to the town, but we're the ones making the decisions on how much to give them. So that's important. And I just made that point. They operate independently, but to ensure future grants, I personally would like to see an increase in private donations because that allows them to fund future projects and improvements. I'd like to see quarterly updates, just like the Planning Commission, the Events Committee, and all these other bodies that report to us. And I'd also like to see them meet more frequently with full board participation. I know there's a few members that have resigned over the last several months. And I'd like to see them meet more frequently and with a full board. So that's been the goal for all of our committees. As you know, earlier this year, there was several committees that were not fully sort of staffed, if you will, or full officer boards. So I would just like to see these things in the future to make sure that every committee, including them, is highly functioning and that we're getting good reports from them. So I'll entertain some questions. That's all I got.
Well, Brian, I'll make a comment. I mean, I think your point about the donations is a good one. And it seems to me that the recent work that was done in the park, which I think the Beautification Foundation should be thanked for, as a good job. I think that work, the completion of that work, should hopefully incentivize our property owners to get back into the habit of gifting to the Beautification Foundation. We went for a while where there wasn't much going on in the park, and I think people kind of got out of that habit a little bit. And I'm hoping that now people will return to that and consider the Beautification Foundation when they write their charitable donations in the future. So perhaps you're right, Brian, in that regard, that their donation side of their financials could grow and get back to more where it was before, particularly in 2019, I guess, where it was well over $6,000, as I recall. Yeah, that makes good sense to me, and your presentation made good sense to me.
What was the reason? I knew we'd used Walkamo Landscaping for several years in a row. Were they that much more expensive than this group I've never heard of before? Tano or whatever?
I can try to answer that. Maybe Ryan has more insight on it, but and we definitely don't want to disparage any companies, but I feel like the I don't want to speak for Tony, but I know that they want better responsiveness, I guess is a nice way to put it. And Walkamo Landscaping did the nature park project recently, and it seemed like they did certainly a nice job with that. I think Tony would probably be the best person to answer that question, but the feedback I've gotten is responsiveness is probably the best word I can come up with. Ryan, you have any insight on that at all? Obviously, we don't want to publicly.
Yeah, I mean, that was they made a decision, and I mean, it's what it comes down to is I don't think they were getting exactly what was presented to them in their contract. And, it just went on for a couple of years and they made a decision, and I don't want to speak for as to why they did it specifically. So I mean, I think Tony or someone else from the Beautification Foundation would be better suited to answering that question.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, we obviously can't dictate who they use, but we can make decisions based on our view of that. But Tony's got some experience in landscaping and all of that, and she deals with them more than anybody by a long shot. And I think that was a decision she felt pretty strongly about. So the recommendation is for 12,000. If anybody feels like we need to do more or less than that, I'd certainly like to hear it. But if you guys are good with that, we'll need a motion.
Well, in the absence of any comments, if there are none, I'm happy to make a motion to go with your recommendation, Ryan, for the $12,000 ATAX allocation.
A second.
All right, we have a motion, a second on the recommendation for $12,000. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you for that. Item 6B, approve MOA with Georgetown County Chamber of Commerce as the town's designated tourism marketing organization.
Yeah, before you guys move on to the next thing, you give the 12,000 to the beautification foundation, but that leaves, 174,301 that's left there, and you have to vote to give the balance of the funds remaining to the town to offset and pay for tourism-related expenses.
Got it. What was that amount again?
It would be, if you're given 12 is what you guys approved.
Yep.
So it would be $174,301.09.
And that's being transferred to the which fund?
So ultimately, it stays in the state aid tax fund. Those funds go to pay the tourism related expenses, but that 174 is what we'll have in there, but we actually get about $350,000 in tourism related expenses. So that shortfall is then offset with 20% that comes from the beach fund, and then the rest is a transfer from the general fund. So it all works out in the end, but this is where it starts.
Somebody can make a so moved motion if you would like on that. It's basically the balance of what the $12,000 was deducted from. Did y'all
So
follow?
moved.
So moved. Second? Anybody? Y'all muted? We need a second.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. And all opposed? All right. Thank you, Ryan, for catching me on that one. The approved MOA with Georgetown County, item 6B, Chamber of Commerce as the town's designated tourism marketing organization. You've done that for years, right?
They've done it for the last, 4 years.
Yeah. Any reason not to do that?
No, I
Do you
mean-
know if they changed any of their ads? Remember the copy was so horrible?
I mean, there was one that was really bad,
Yeah.
before they got on though. I mean, I don't know what the latest ad is that they're running. I mean, I'd have to.
I don't think there's anything new since we last made that assessment.
I know they're in the process of updating the website because that has, that's in desperately need of a refresh. It looks good, but it's been the same for 3 years. So I know they're in the process of updating that.
I will have a conversation with one of those committee members. Make sure she passes along some of those ads and website updates to us as a town council, so at least we can weigh in on it. That work, Sarah?
Yeah.
All right. Is the MOA in the Dropbox?
It is, yes.
Anybody have any objection? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Well, in the absence of another motion, I'll proceed.
What's wrong with us tonight?
Seem to be on the roll. Yes, I'll make a motion to approve that MOA. What language do you want on that, Woody?
You're muted. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Now, yes.
Now.
Well, this I'm assuming is the one that we've used in the past, Ryan, isn't it?
Same document, last 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've reviewed that. It's fine the way it's written.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking, Rocky?
Yeah. So basically, I make a motion to approve that MOA.
Second.
All right, motion second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we've got two more items here, actually 3 more items, but the next 2 are related to the public hearing items that we had no comments on. First up is the final reading of ordinance 2020-12. We discussed this the November meeting, a request from Walt and Monica to rezone a portion of their lot from conservation and preservation to residential R1. Property is located at 632 Pritchard Street. Ryan gave a presentation on this in November. There were no objections at that time. That information is in your packet for further review. Any
I
thoughts?
make a motion to approve the zoning change.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. All right, next is a final reading of ordinance 2020-13, an ordinance adopting the 2021 annual operating budget. We spent a good bit of time on Thursday, and I appreciate everyone participating in that. We spent well over an hour on the budget. As I recall, some of the larger items that we discussed was one, we basically agreed that a new car and a new ATV for the police department was acceptable. One of the things what we did discuss is that there's sort of a protocol of how often and how fast the four-wheeler and or ATV goes up and down the beach, where it spends most time at public accesses or otherwise. I think in speaking to Gary earlier today, he feels like, and I kind of agree, before we write the check and spend the money, let's have some more conversation and agreement on that protocol as far as patrols, time on the beach, etc. I think we all recall what I'm referring to there. The second item is we approved $35,000 added to the budget to conduct drainage pilot project with a particular focus on two drains at Town Hall and another one of the drains down at the Bird's Nest corner at Pritchard and Springs. Rocky did a presentation on Thursday, which demonstrated how this pilot project would alleviate flooding in those two areas by putting backflow preventers so that when we have king tides, as long as the water doesn't top the bank, it should reduce or eliminate flooding at those low-lying areas. And the town council felt strongly that that was a good investment, because if it works, which we think it will, it's something that we can pursue larger funding to do across the entire island. Pretty good stuff. And then I also wanted to mention, Rocky, you can certainly add to this, but this would be, at least the pilot projects would be a public-private partnership where there's cost to clean out the drains and get them prepared for a backflow preventer, and then there would be the expense of backflow preventer, and half of that would be paid by the town, and the other half would be paid by nearby property owners that have a vested interest in making sure that it's funded and then it's done properly. And we can come. I'm gonna give you all four of these, and then we can come back and you can ask questions or whatever. Thirdly, in putting up Christmas lights, I was an elf, I wasn't in charge, but in putting up Christmas lights, we realized that there really are no outlets in Nature Park to plug in Christmas lights and other landscape lighting. So there needs to be some upgrades just for that purpose, because we have extension cords running all over Nature Park right now, which could also be a hazard. But also Town Hall, on the exterior at the second level where the porch is, there's no exterior outlets there. So when we have events and such, you have to run extension cords through the windows and all, which is not a big deal. But if we're going to look at electrical upgrades in Nature Park, we might as well look at maybe putting some outlets accessible on the exterior. And then lastly, this is not a very big expense, but the ARB has asked that to continue down the path that they're on with a review document. And in order to do so, as long as they have an agreement from us on what the Pawleys look is, then they can work with David Graham to further that endeavor. David has basically donated his time to this point, David Graham, to get us where we are now, which we all appreciate. But if we continue to use his services, we're going to need a little bit of money to close the deal on this. So those are the four items that I recall. Ryan, if I missed something or you guys remember something differently, then let's discuss it. Does anybody have any heartburn about the 4 items that I just talked about? The electrical work, the third one, Ryan's getting quotes to what that will cost. So if it comes back at some huge sum, then we don't like it and we don't have to do it, because we can make it work, but we're tripping breakers and it's hard to keep the lights on as it is. And again, the nature park is not just for Christmas lights, it's also for events that we need to be having more of anyway. So it would be a good idea to upgrade the electrical in the park. What do y'all think?
The only comment I would make, Brian, is that the upgrade to the electrics in the park, it sounds like a really good idea. And that might be something that if presented to the Beautification Foundation, they could go forward to property owners as an opportunity for donations that would cover those improvements. So, I mean, just something that might be thought about.
That's a good idea. I like
And
that.
Rocky, I was going to ask the same thing about the drainage. Could that, and I don't know whether Rocky or Ryan would be better to answer this. Would it be possible to run that through, shall we say, the Beautification Foundation, so that property owners could make a donation? Because obviously this flooding is hurting the nature park, and could that not be a project where we could do tax-free donations?
Well, I mean, I think the answer is yes, Sarah, but if you remember, I asked Ryan the question on Thursday when we had our offsite, whether an individual's donations to the town for the purposes of drainage could also be a tax-free, be given a tax-free letter so that they could use it in their taxes, end of year taxes. And I think the answer was yes. So I believe that the tax advantage could accrue to the homeowners, whether it's the park, whether it's Beautification Foundation, or just directly to the town.
I also think that the electrical is one thing, because that might be several $1,000s, as opposed to this is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars to do something down the road at a larger scale. And that was the other thing we talked about on Thursday, is future funding for capital projects and how we're going to get that money. I'm not opposed to doing that. It's just we're going to be getting into tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars through the Beautification Foundation that is typically operating on a $15,000 to $20,000 budget.
My own opinion is if we can accomplish the tax-free advantage or tax offset advantages by staying directly with the town, it's probably just a simpler process, Sarah, as opposed to involving.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I didn't remember that part about the town being able to issue a donation letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ryan confirmed that he can do that.
Okay.
So just to be clear, donations can be made to the town. I mean, the only stipulation is it's a donation to the town. That money is to be used for the general benefit of, the entire community. So they can't say, okay, here's $50,000 that has to be used for that. It's really just a general donation that goes to the benefit of everybody. Clearly, there's going to be an understanding when they donate that money that this is what I would like it to go, and no one in mind is going to say, okay, well, thanks, but we're going to use it for this. And then, yes, we can, like similar to what we did with the underground wire, I can write a letter stating that a donation has been made, and those property owners or whoever makes a donation can use that in filing their taxes. And there really would be no benefit in including the Beautification Foundation in this, other than it would just complicate the whole thing. You'd have another cook in the kitchen, so to speak. And
Agreed.
Good clarification. Thank you. And good thought on that, Sarah. What else? We talked about the police vehicle, the ATV, the pilot project for drainage, the electrical, which we can, once we get that quote, that'll be our next trigger to either add it to the budget or to present it to the Beautification Foundation to help us raise the money to do that. And then I don't know how much money we're talking about necessarily with the architect, but I don't see it being hefty. I'll find out from John Hildreth what that looks like, and we can either amend it but everything that's in here is in the revised budget, right, Ryan? That's on Dropbox.
So I mean, so this is the same budget as last month.
Mhm.
And again, that budget is almost carbon copy as to 2019, except for obviously things that go up, salaries, things that just go up in costs that we have no control over. The only exceptions were we included $15,000 for one of the council members to be included on the town's health insurance plan, but that is offset by a donation of an equal amount to pay for it. So that is a net zero sum. So it has really no effect on it. But for someone who doesn't know what they're looking at, I would hate for them to say, okay, well, why is health insurance $15,000 more if they don't see the donation that cancels it out? And then number two, this budget has included $58,879 for the replacement of one police department squad car, patrol vehicle, and to replace the ATV that we use for patrolling the beach. So that is included in the budget. So that is still in this version of the budget. So you had mentioned something when you started that we would have a further discussion over that before. I'm assuming you mean we're going to approve it the way it is, but before we go spend the money, you want to have a further discussion, correct?
That's how I understood it as well.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Just want to be clear on that.
Thank you.
All right. And then the only changes then that have been made since first reading in November is we included the $35,000 as a placeholder to kick off that pilot program for future storm drainage. Obviously the details and how it'll work and where those drains will go is kind of yet to be determined, but those details will be flushed out as time goes on. And the other is those electrical outlets that Brian talked about. I put in as a placeholder $8,000. Whether it is that amount, I won't know until we get the estimates back from the electrician. But based on adding things all over the island in recent years, that's a pretty good guesstimate. So I have $8,000 in for that. But those are the only two things that have been added since last reading.
Okay. Well, we went over this pretty heavy on Thursday. What other questions or additions or what do you guys have? Because otherwise, let's go ahead and approve it.
Do you want to add money for using David Graham? And do you want to throw like $5,000 in there now so you don't have to amend it later? Or would you rather just tackle it when that becomes an issue? It's fine either way.
I'd maybe put 1,500 in there, 2,000.
I mean, if it's gonna be 1,500, I would say don't even worry about it until you can always amend the budget down the road. Because it's very likely that we're gonna not spend 1,500 in a line item. It would even be worth amending it. So they just cancel each other out.
What do you think, Sarah, Rocky?
I agree with that. Let's just wait.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm good with that. All right. I think sounds to me like we're there. But we'll need a motion.
So you're going to do it, Ashley, go.
Making a motion to adjourn.
It's so bad. It's a big, he's scared to make it. It's a 2021 budget.
I'll make a motion to approve second reading of the 2021 budget. Or, yeah.
Not all at once.
Now let's second that.
Y'all are killing me tonight. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the 2021 annual operating budget? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, last but not least, we're going to talk Christmas bonuses. The agenda says full-time employees 300 net, part-time employees 110 net. And the question that I have is, how long has it been at that level? Dollar full-time employees, and who we talk? I mean, we're talking about how many people?
I mean, there's 5 of us now.
Yeah.
So it's in my 7 years, it's been the same. Mike,
Yeah, probably at least 8 to 9 years. Yeah.
what was your first year?
My year was
Man,
2007, and it was 250 then.
All right, so it was 2000. In 2007, it was 250, and then it went up to 300 a couple years later, and it's been there ever since.
we
Okay.
got too much more.
Anybody feeling in the Christmas spirit? Gonna be Grinches. I think we could probably tweak that up a little bit. Anybody have a thought on that?
I'd be okay with that.
Me
I
too.
agree.
What are we thinking? 400, 200,
It's 3 now.
3 now,
You want to say 350?
400.
As you like.
It's been a while, man.
Okay,
7 years.
okay.
400, and then I want to go 200 for the part-time or 150. Brian, what do you recommend on that? I'm putting you on the spot. 175?
120. 150 is perfect. I think 150 is.
All right.
Is good.
All right. Hope I don't get y'all in trouble. All right. So we need to approve Christmas bonuses for full-time employees moving from 300 to 400, part-time employees from 110 to 150. And this is the last agenda item, Ashley, if you want to go ahead and make that motion.
Do we have to vote on this,
Yes, we do.
this motion? Well, I make a motion and we approve that.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Well, absolutely. Well, that's the least we could do. Thank you all. All right. Any comments before we adjourn?
Merry Christmas.
To you as well.
Merry Christmas.
Everybody.
Merry Christmas, y'all.
Go Tigers.
Absolutely.
Ashley, we need a motion, Ashley.
How about let's make a motion that we adjourn the meeting?
Second
I'll
on that.
second that.
All in
Yeah, you
favor,
got
say
2
aye.
seconds on that one.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Merry Christmas, y'all.
Merry
Way to
Christmas.
go.
We're
Take
all
care.
time this month.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
I tell you, that was just dragging.